G'day, Mick, Zeg Grills Australia. Today here with Russ, who's had his Zeg Grill for a couple of years and has cooked some amazing stuff on there. Now Russ, talk to us about the favourite things that you like to cook on the Zeg Grill.
Top two, chicken and full oyster blade.
How do you do chicken?
Just roast it straight in, bit of whatever spices you want to do.
Yep.
A few herbs, bit of salt, pepper.
And what about the oyster blade? How do you do that?
Oyster blade, just same treatment as brisket or ribs, exactly the same.
Lovely.
Just take it through to the same temperature. The bit of gristle in the centre.
Yep. Magic.
To die for. If you've never had it, do yourself a favour, as Molly Meldrum would say. Go and get an oyster blade.
Now, the Zeg Grill's going. What's in there at the moment?
We've got a lovely shoulder of lamb in there at the moment, square cut, old fashioned, old style.
Yep.
Been in there since 11 o'clock last night.
Okay.
And going lovely.
Now, today, what are we going to cook?
We're going to do a brine today for a smoked salmon.
Awesome.
So we'll do the first part today, which is getting the brine ready, putting it on the cooker to simmer it up so they all blend together. Half a cup of salt. I use half a cup of raw sugar. Then you've got 500 mils of apple juice.
Yep.
We've got 2 tablespoons of honey there, which is a local honey from up the road. A glug of apple cider vinegar and a glug of maple syrup, which is probably about 2 tablespoons, just so you've got a rough idea. Lovely half a cup of bourbon. It's got to be Buffalo Trace.
Buffalo what?
Buffalo Trace.
That's a brand?
Yes, that's the brand.
Not a big bourbon drinker.
Nice bourbon. Also, we have bay leaves, which we'll put in probably 4 or 5 bay leaves.
Yep.
Some ground peppercorns, whole peppercorns, and just a bit of dry dill. It's only a brine we're making, so it doesn't have to be fresh. You can use fresh, but dry is sufficient. And
Awesome.
I also add a bit of fresh tarragon from the garden because it's there, so it goes well with seafood.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to do the brining process and then leave it overnight, and then tomorrow we'll smoke the salmon.
Exactly.
Let's go ahead and mix everything up in the pan. We'll turn the stove on and we can add in all the ingredients.
This can go in any order, it doesn't matter. I like to put obviously the liquid in first. In with the salt, in with the sugar. I just like to give that a little bit of a stir up, get her going. It's about 15 or 20 minutes just to let it all sort of, once it gets to a simmer stage.
Yep.
15 or 20. Yeah, this will go into 2 litres of water later, and that makes up your brine for the salmon to go in.
Okay.
So this is like your, I suppose this is your stock more or less in a way, if you want to call it that. Maple syrup, whole black peppercorns, bit of a crush. They don't need a lot in there.
Yep.
Beautiful. Now the bay leaves.
Yep, there we go.
Half a dozen or so, a couple more maybe.
Crush those up.
Crush them up a little bit.
Beautiful.
Give them a bit of a crush. And then a little bit of dill. Some people will call me a dill because I haven't even got it ready to go. Okay, so I just go 1, 2, that's about it. Obviously my fresh tarragon, you don't need to cut this up, you just break it up. Just like that, just for a bit of extra oomph. Stir this all together, make sure that your salt, your sugar's all dissolved. As we said before, 15 or 20 minutes. Once that's done, that's going to go into 2 litres of water, and that's the brine for my salmon.
Now, for the fish, any preparation for that?
I need to see it.
You stay there, I'll bring some salmon out.
I haven't seen this salmon today.
So we've got 4 of these skin-on, boneless salmon fillets I picked up from Lamana out in Essendon Fields yesterday. So you can get them with bones, yeah?
They do come with bones, but you'll find most people pin bone these days because it's what everyone wants the bone out.
If this had the bones, we'd have to pull these out one by one.
We'd have to get the tweezers out and pluck, 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 pluck.
So this makes life nice and easy.
Definitely get, if you're going to buy your salmon from a fishmonger or somewhere else, it's always, I prefer skin on when I'm smoking my salmon because it can come off later. It doesn't stick then your salmon to everything else and you don't lose bits of salmon. Your skin gives you an extra layer of protection, in my opinion.
Now you've got a butchering background, haven't you, Russ?
Yeah, I'm a butcher by trade.
Okay.
And I also had a wholesale business and I did a lot of seafood, mainly crayfish.
Yep.
So, beautiful bit of salmon. If you're getting salmon, it depends on what size you want. You can have it cut into smaller portions and still use this brine. It's quite okay. I probably wouldn't leave it in the brine for 12 hours if you're doing smaller portions, maybe 4 to 6. I do full size, so mine are normally a little bit longer than this. Tail off, so it's a little bit longer. Would probably go the length of the board normally. This is nice, it's all done, ready to go. Mick, you can chuck that in there, cold water. Just fill your sink up. Obviously, you don't want your pot floating around and you don't want the cold water to go into your pot, so it's just enough to get around your pot. I just leave it in there till I put my finger in there and it feels cool. It's probably about half an hour, I'm guessing. Once that's done, goes into the rest of the cold water, and we're ready to do the brining.
Every time I come to Russ's place, I always come and check out the fridge. He's got a good selection of homemade food. Let's have a look. What have we got in here, Russ?
Okay, we've got the smoked cheese that some of you probably would have seen the other day. Also some smoked salmon, pastrami. Over here we've got some bacon, another one ready to slice out. Bit of ham down on the next shelf, and that's a little bit of pulled pork. And yes, it is from the 16th to the 12th, and I'm not dead yet. Make sure your bags are sealed well. That's all I can say if you're going to experiment with that. I've eaten stuff 4 or 5 months old, in all seriousness, and most of my brines are play around brines. It's just a matter of I fine-tune them, got them right, and I just have heart attacks and lung problems, that's all.
Well, I've eaten the pastrami and I've eaten lots of this stuff and I feel fine as well. So
I haven't killed any of my neighbours yet either, so I think I'm pretty good. If I haven't got it worked out now, I'll never work it out. Okay, we're just going to give this nice shoulder of lamb a little bit of spritzing. Too easy. Now, the brine's cooled down. It's been about 20 minutes. Mick's eating all the cooked salmon. I'm keeping this lot now. Cold water, I actually like to chuck it into the brine. And the only reason being because you'll find there's a lot of stuff stuck around the edge.
Get that nice flavour back in there.
That's a lot of goodness, I reckon. You can't afford to waste. So you just put your glove on and get it off. Get it off. Get it in there. Beautiful.
So 2 litres of water?
2 litres of water is all you need. Plenty, especially for these bits. I use a bigger tub, but I use sides and I still only use 2 litres of water.
Yep.
As long as your salmon's covered, and if you have trouble, you know, put a bit of weight on it. Okay, so last 2, put them in upside down. It doesn't really matter, but that makes sure you've got the weight there to keep the flesh part of your salmon in the brine.
So question for you, Russ.
Yep.
What happens if we leave it in the brine for too long, the fish?
Look, I think obviously it's probably going to be too salty, or even though it's not a very salty brine to start with because of the amount of water that you've got.
Yep.
I used to brine for only 2 or 3 or 4 hours, but I've just changed my recipe up a little bit now because I'm doing full sides rather than fillets.
Yep.
Because it cuts better afterwards and holds better, doesn't dry out. You know, if you use small fillets, you tend to get more dry edges.
Yep.
So I wouldn't over brine. I think you can over brine and it can get too salty, especially anything poultry, seafood is really easy to kill if you do it for too long.
Yeah, okay.
I do 12 hours
Yep.
and then I pour it out into the fridge for 2 to 4 hours to get that nice pellicle. Yeah.
Okay, so
skin coating.
pellicle is a skin or coating of proteins on the surface of meat, fish or poultry that allows smoke to better adhere to the surface of the meat during the smoking process.
That's exactly it. That's the science. And I don't get into the science too much because there's an old saying, bullshit baffles brains, and I've got no brains, but so the bullshit doesn't sink in at all. Good morning, grillers. Well, we're back here now to get our salmon out of the brine. So here we go. You saw this yesterday. Now, Rusty needs some gloves. So all we need now is cold water, salmon out of the brine, peppercorns or anything on it, just make sure you rinse them off. Handle with care because salmon's a delicate fish. Never ever use a brine twice. Little tip in case you don't know it. Once is more than enough, and you don't want to poison anybody. And we're just going to give it a simple little pat dry. Don't have to go nuts. Doesn't take much to dry off a bit of salmon, just simply like that. And then I put it onto these mats, which a lot of you are probably familiar with. And this makes it really easy to slide in and out of your smoker. Number 2, a couple of hours in the fridge, as we said, to get that nice pellicle on it, and that helps absorb the smoke better. And we'll be back for part 2 when we get Mick out of bed. One for Mick.
Lovely. So we've got the salmon out of the fridge. It's been in there for about 3.5 hours?
Yeah, 3.5, 4 hours, yep. You can cut it out at 2 if you want to, but 4 hours was what suited today, so that's what we did. Yep.
So the next step is to put it in the smoker. So we'll fire up the Z grill and we're going to smoke for roughly 3 hours. How long do you reckon?
We're thinking 2.5, 3 hours on this size probably today. It might be a little bit less, but the ballpark I'm saying it's probably about 2.5.
Awesome, let's fire up the Z grill then. So Russ, you've got a few stickers on here. Do you want to explain what these are?
Kansas City Barbecue Society. I got those stickers when I signed up to become a judge. So I'm actually a judge. I've actually only done one competition.
What's involved with the judging process?
Eating lots of meat. Try not to get a meat coma.
So we've just got our first big cloud of smoke coming out of the Zeg grill. We can hear the roaring sound of the fire, which means at this point in time we can shut the lid and we can set our temperature. So the question is, what temperature are we cooking at, Russ?
We're going at 107.
107.
And we're looking for an internal of 63 on the fish.
Let's put that on 107. So we'll wait maybe about 10 minutes for it to come up to temperature and then we can throw our fish in.
Throw our fish in.
It's certainly good to have temperature thermometers in your food because then you can monitor that temperature over time and even set an alarm so you know when it gets to temperature and you can pull it off. So it's very handy because what you don't want to do is continually open the lid. There's a saying that if you keep looking, you're not cooking. So you want to keep the lid shut and use those temperature probes to let you know what the food is doing inside. Okay, let's go ahead and throw the salmon on the grill. I'll be the helpful assistant here for Russ.
As you notice, I've got the salmon on these barbecue mesh mats you can buy almost anywhere. The idea is it's really easy to peel off when you finish, and your fish doesn't stick to the grill.
Okay, it's been 2.5 hours. It looks like our salmon is up to temperature. What temp are we at, Russ?
63 for a couple of them. We're still waiting for these last two. This one's just peaked at temp now.
Yep.
So we'll take that out. This one a little bit earlier, obviously because it's a bit smaller.
So 63, 64 degrees C is what we're looking for.
Just see how this is going to flake apart. It's still quite warm, so it will flake a lot easier when it's warm, and that's why I say it's a good idea to get it out of the fridge a little bit beforehand, because the temp will flake up a little bit. This is just so oily and beautiful, full of good omega-3. Cream cheese.
Assume the position. Smoked salmon, cream cheese
Coming up.
on a bagel.
And we're just about ready for the next one too, so.
Check it out, smoked salmon, Russ's recipe on the Zeg grill. Pretty happy with that outcome, Russ?
Couple of hours, beautiful. Yeah, very happy. Great colour, exactly how I usually get my smoked salmon to come out. This is just straight on a Zeg grill, so it just shows you can still get that nice, beautiful colour. Using my recipe, same. Beautiful.
And I cut the lemons.
And yeah, Mick cut the lemons, and it was a joint effort on the dressing. So,
Thanks, Russ.
cheers, boys.